All right, so we're still on the subject overall of retrieving autobiographical memories. Let's talk a little bit about the self memory system, the autobiographical memory system. So, you have one component that's referred to as the working self, and that contains your self image, all your goals and plans. If you hear a dog barking, that's my dog outside the window. Any attitudes and beliefs that you hold, that would be all considered your working self. The autobiographical knowledge base consists of, your lifetime periods. You've got infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, general events that occur out in the world, and then your complex episodic memory. So, like, your very detailed recollection of specific events that you particularly remember. They don't have to involve you, but you particularly remember them. So you've got your self memory system divided up into these two major components, the working self and the autobiographical knowledge base. So when we are retrieving autobiographical memories, anything that relates to your self image or any attitudes that you hold, things like that, that's going to activate the working self component of your self memory system. Anytime that you're thinking about, general events or complex episodic, those kinds of things, you think about the time that you were at Disneyland, or you think about that movie that you watched or something like that, that's going to activate your autobiographical knowledge base. So your self-memory system is pretty complex, and it's just now being fleshed out. Like I said, I know I was in grad school in your guys' world probably a long time ago, because it was, probably, a long time before you were born, but it's relatively recent in the world of science. And so, they've only really been trying to figure out how to measure autobiographical memory for probably, I don't know, 40 years, let alone trying to develop some kind of model for how the system is organized and things. So this may be changing over time. We may get better at understanding exactly how the self-memory system works. So flashbulb memories are a really special case of autobiographical memories. Flashbulb memories are memories that are very detailed, they're very vivid, and you hold them very confidently. Like, you feel like you definitely have got all the details right when you're talking about a flashbulb memory. It tends to be that you make flashbulb memories for things that are very emotionally laden. It could be news that you received, it could be an experience that you had, but it has to include emotion. So it could be, fear, it could be sadness, it could be happiness. I'll give you one of each kind of example of happy. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and a lot of people have what they believe to be really super accurate flashbulb memories for where they were on the day of 9/11 and when they found out about the events and stuff like that. Like, you might want to ask your parents, tell me what you remember about 9/11. And what you'll probably hear is really specific, vivid. There may be some emotion that they'll express about how they felt at the time. For my mom, it was the assassination of JFK. And she remembered which soap opera she watched, and she watched 3 at the time. I mean, how did this woman get anything done, right? She watched 3 soap operas at the time, but she remembers which one she was watching, and she even remembers the plot point that was interfered with when the news came on with breaking news. And back in the olden days, I got to tell you what, when the special report would cut in on whatever you were watching, your heart would start racing, because you're like, what awful thing has happened that they're breaking in with the news, right? So her heart was probably already racing. And this, she had a 4-month-old baby at the time. My brother was 4 months old. And, so she's folding her laundry or doing whatever she's doing, and the news breaks in and delivers this horrible news that the president had been shot, and then a few hours later that then he had died. And she remembers exactly what the weather was. Like I said, she remembers what the plot point was on the soap opera that was interfered with. And I have a similar kind of detailed memory for 9/11. Like, I remember exactly everything that happened from the moment I woke up that morning until, it's in blobs, because flashbulbs are only blobs. But probably for the rest of that day, I have little blobs of pictures that I can see of what like when a new piece of information came in. Flash bulbs, I gave you a picture of an old-timey flash bulb because the idea with this kind of memory is that it's as if a flash bulb went off and everything that got illuminated by that flash bulb gets stored in your memory, even when it's completely irrelevant to the memory. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't help with your understanding of the memory at all, but you'll store it with you. Like, for example, what does the soap opera plot point have to do with my mom's recollection of the assassination of JFK? What does the weather in Southern California have to do with the assassination of JFK that happened in Dallas, right? Like, those things have nothing to do with the memory, but all of it gets stored away. And one of the things you'll notice as we're having this 20th anniversary and people are talking about 9/11, almost all of them start off saying, it was such a beautiful morning. You know, everybody who was in New York City, the first thing they'll say, it was such a beautiful morning. The sky was so blue. It was such a beautiful morning. And it's like, really weird that everybody starts off with their recollection of what the weather was like, except for it's not weird, because in flashbulb memories, what we think happens is that when you experience a profound emotion, something that could be scary, sad, happy, something like that, it causes the release of adrenaline. And that leads to automatic encoding of whatever was going around you when that emotional event happened, when the adrenaline was released. If you think of our ancestral history, these flashbulb memories make a lot more sense. Imagine if you are a cave person and you're taking your skin bag down to the watering hole to pick up some water for the group. And while you're on your way, you encounter a mountain lion, and only through pure luck do you escape and you get back to the clan and you go, oh my gosh, I was attacked by a mountain lion. I managed to live. I don't know, what cave person language you're speaking, so it's going to have to be, American English. So you're, gosh, I got attacked on the way down. Your brain has encoded what time of day it was when that happened, whether there were any birds chirping or not, or any other animals scurrying around or not, because these are all potential clues for when to avoid going to the watering hole next time. Maybe you shouldn't go at that time of day. Maybe if the birds aren't chirping, that's a sign. Or if the squirrels aren't scampering, that's a sign. And so all these little details that kind of seem irrelevant, who cares if the birds are chirping or not? I was attacked by a mountain lion and only through my great skill did I get away from it. They actually might be, useful information. And so next time you're in the same circumstance and you start to notice it actually matches very much like the last time something bad happened, maybe you can take evasive action, right? Don't go. So think about it in modern times. So, you've got this automatic encoding of all these things that are going on. Let's talk about, I said it could be a happy thing also. So let's think of a happy example. Maybe the first time you ever saw the person who is now your, romantic partner. I have that as a flashbulb for sure. The first time I saw my husband, who did not see me at all. Just want you to know, he did not have clue when I existed for a good solid 2 more years. I spotted him across the campus, and I just remember it was the weirdest thing. It was a sunny day, but it seemed like the sun was hitting him more than everybody else. Like, he was standing out and really caught my attention. I was like, who is that? And the next day I went to the same spot hoping to see him again. And I didn't see him again. I took a friend with me because I thought maybe my friend would be able to identify this stranger. I never saw him again the whole rest of the year, and not for the next year. And then finally, a solid 2 years later, I walked into biology for the first day of class, and he was in that room. And when I walked in, it was indoors, but I swear the sun was on his head again. I'm like, oh, there he is, that guy I've been looking for 2 years. There he is. So I finagled to sit next to him in class, and then the rest is history. Yeah. But I definitely remember the first time I saw him, and think how helpful that was, because the next time I saw him, I was like, there he is again, right? Like, I completely recognized him because, my flashbulb had encoded all these details about him, right? Like his height and what color his hair was, even though his hair was completely different between the 2 years. He had completely buzzed it off because he was playing water polo. And so it looked completely different. Actually, it seemed darker, right? Because he cut it. But I had stored enough details that I was able to actually, recognize him out of context in this classroom and stake my claim. So, even with happy things, you can see the adaptive nature of storing irrelevant details, even alongside the important parts, the things that you really need. So you might have had that experience for like the first time that somebody told you that they loved you, or maybe when you found out that you got that job that you really wanted, or you got into that school that you really wanted to get into, or something like that, like these big happy pieces of information. You also have it for scary things. If you've ever been in a car accident, you probably remember what song was playing on the radio. Like that has nothing to do with the car accident, right? It's not helpful at all, except for here you have it. So flashbulb memories, we think, are probably helpful for keeping you out of situations that have been dangerous in the past. That's the basic idea. So I'm going to put this into the playlist. Please don't start running. But I'm going to go ahead and finish up what I was going to say because I'm almost done with the slide deck. So that video that'll tell you a little bit more about the role of emotion in memory will come after this. I just wanted to finish up with mood and autobiographical memory and talk a little bit about mood-dependent memory. Mood, just like language, just like any other contextual cue, mood serves as context. And just like every other context, you do better at encoding and retrieving information when the mood matches between those two things. So if you're in the same mood at encoding as retrieval, you'll remember the material better than if you are, let's say, depressed when you encode it and happy when you retrieve it. You'll actually do worse. So you want to have a match between moods when you're trying to remember things. So if you have an autobiographical memory that's sad, sometimes it comes back to you better if you're sad again. If you have an autobiographical memory that's happy, it'll come back more readily when you're happy again. So people who are in a depressed mood, not necessarily a major depression that is clinically diagnosable, but people who've been induced into a depressed mood, they tend to retrieve negative memories faster and they tend to retrieve negative memories more accurately, which supports that idea that the mood that you're in serves as context for encoding that, will be facilitated at retrieval if you're back into that same mood again. Now, mood congruence, there's not as much data to support the mood congruence effect, but this theory says that, or this model says that you will encode material that matches your mood much more readily because you notice congruent information more than you will notice things that don't go along with your mood. I have some simplistic examples that might help you to understand this mood congruence effect. If you've ever broken up with somebody, it seems like every song that pops up on your Pandora feed or Spotify or whatever is a love song. And you're like, come on, man, can you get off the love songs? I'm sad right now. It just seems like they're all about, exactly what you're feeling. You're noticing things that are congruent with your mood. Another really simple one is, if you have ever gotten a new car and you're all excited, you got your new car. And then now as you're driving it around, you're like, hey, there's somebody driving my same car. Hey, there's somebody else driving my same car. And you had never noticed that many of that car until you started driving it. And then it seems like they're all over the place because we start to notice congruent information more. And so we tend to encode information that goes along with how we're feeling. And then we can kind of retrieve it better, right? Through the mood dependent memory effect, we can retrieve it better when we're in that mood. So those are really important things to keep in mind about autobiographical memory, that sometimes things we feel like we've forgotten them, but maybe we're just not in the right state right now to retrieve that information. All right, well, that should wrap up my dissertation on autobiographical memory. The next thing in the playlist will be this video about the role of emotion in memory. And these guys that are in this video have done a lot of research on autobiographical memory and on flashbulb memories. So I think you'll find it really interesting. So, all right, I will see you in the next chapter.